It started with a rattle in the vent shaft, not the kind of sound you expect miles underground, where the only thing you're supposed to hear is the low hum of machinery and the distant echo of steel against stone. This was something else, soft, irregular, like fingers brushing metal slats. I paused, my pick resting against my thigh, my helmet lamp flickering across the walls of Shaft 9B. For a moment, I thought it might have just been the wind from surface air pressure, but we were too deep for that. Too deep for anything to move unless we made it move. I'd worked this mine in northern Pennsylvania for 8 years. Old company, older tunnels. Some shafts dated back to the 40s. Back when records were kept on brittle paper, when safety was a word for other people. The crew was small, tight-knit, mostly locals. Me, Jake, Curtis, and Silva on the third shift. We all kept to ourselves, heads down, and came home with coal dust soaked into our skin. But that day, something shifted. We were sent to clear debris near an old wall in Sector E. It was sealed decades ago, the reason lost to time. According to the blueprints, it was just a collapsed corridor, unsafe, off limits. But when we got there, Jake whistled low and pointed his headlamp at the base. The seal was cracked. Not recent either. It looked like it had been splitting for years, just no one had bothered to check. "We patching this or poking it?" Curtis asked, half joking, brushing dust off the ancient "Do Not Enter" sign nailed into the stone. Silva radioed it in. The boss on the surface said to hang tight, wait for an engineer. But we were antsy, the way you get when you've already been down here 12 hours and the air starts tasting stale. Jake, being Jake, shrugged and said, "Hell, it's probably just an old drainage tunnel." He hit the weak spot once with a sledgehammer, and the wall fell. Not in a dramatic movie-style collapse, just a low groan and a puff of ancient air that hit us all at once. Cold. Dry. It smelled wrong. Not rot exactly, but like a place that had been sealed off from life for a long time. Dead air. Behind it, a tunnel, a perfectly straight one, no markings, no braces, smooth walls that looked too even for something hand-dug with 20th century tools. Jake's lamp lit up the first few yards. Then it curved slightly, descending into pitch. "This ain't on the blueprint," Silva muttered. "This isn't on any blueprint." We should have left it alone. But we didn't. We stepped inside, just a few feet at first. The air changed the farther we went. Cooler, yes, but heavier too. Like whatever was ahead was absorbing the sound. Even our boots seemed quieter. It made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. Silva kept close to the wall. Curtis stayed at the rear. Jake led, always too curious for his own good. I followed reluctantly, glancing behind me more than I cared to admit. The tunnel dipped slowly, like a spiral, going just slightly deeper with every turn, and the deeper we went, the more I felt it, that wrongness. Not danger exactly, but pressure, as if the earth itself was aware of us, watching, waiting. No roots, no critters, no dripping water, just rock, perfectly smooth, and the echo of our own breath. "This is carved," Jake whispered at one point, running a gloved hand over the wall. "You can feel the lines, but no chisel marks, nothing like the rest of the mine." He was right. The stone was cold to the touch, but dry, untouched by time or moisture. Too clean. It didn't belong here. We didn't belong here. About 30 yards in, we found something. At first, it looked like debris, just a pile of dark cloth and tools. But when I stepped closer, I realized it wasn't cloth. It was a uniform, old style, the kind used before the merger with the new mining company. The name patch was gone, rotted off, but I saw the faded insignia. Curtis knelt and picked up a hard hat. "Come on, this is from the 80s. Silva didn't say a word. He just pointed to the tunnel floor behind us. Footprints, but not ours. They were older, dried into the dust like faint impressions in talc. They didn't follow our entry path. They came from deeper in and stopped right where we were standing. Jake was the first to laugh. All right, you're spooking yourselves. It's just some old exploratory shaft they sealed off. Someone probably wandered down here years ago and bailed. But I wasn't convinced. None of us were. We voted to leave. Carefully, slowly. Silva took a few photos for the site manager. Jake lingered for one last look until I told him we were going with or without him. The moment we stepped back into the main shaft, the air felt breathable again. The silence faded. The mine felt like a mine. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. And the next shift, that's when the real trouble started. The next shift began with Curtis refusing to go underground. He showed up on time, helmet under his arm, but stood by the equipment lockers like he was nailed to the floor. When the foreman barked at him, Curtis just said, "There's something wrong with that tunnel." That was all. They pulled him off the roster and sent him home. That same night, Silva called in sick. Jake and I went down alone, along with a few other guys from a different crew. No one mentioned the tunnel, but I saw the way Jake kept glancing at the wall where the opening had been. Only it wasn't there anymore, at least not at first. Around hour 3, our signal monitors began to glitch. Just momentary static and like short bursts of interference. Every time we passed the same junction, that was near the spot, and then we noticed it. A shift in the wall, a hairline crack, like something was breathing behind it. One of the newer guys, Leon, tapped it with his pickaxe. The wall flaked off in a perfect arc. Behind it, a narrow tunnel. But this time it wasn't dry. This time it reeked. Wet earth, rotted wood, metal. A stench, like stagnant time. Jake didn't even wait. He backed up, shaking his head. "Number, I don't care what's in there. We leave it alone." But Leon stepped forward, light raised. That's when we heard it. Breathing, faint, like from behind layers of stone, but rhythmic, steady. I felt it in my chest more than my ears. Someone, or something, was on the other side of that tunnel. Jake pulled Leon back. "We're sealing it," he said. "This isn't part of the mine. This is something else." When we went back up, Jake reported it. Management said they'd review the footage and data, but the next day, all talk about the tunnel stopped. No follow-up, no mention in the daily safety reports. Nothing. By the end of the week, Jake quit. Silva never came back. Neither did Curtis. And me? I stayed. I had my reasons, debts, family, routine, but I never went near that junction again. I kept my head down, stuck to approved corridors, avoided overtime, and never worked nights. But sometimes, when the drills stop, when the dust settles and we're switching out crews, I still hear it. Faint. Under the rumble of machinery, behind the hum of electric lamps. That breathing, patient, waiting. And I know whatever's down there didn't come through the tunnel. It made the tunnel, and it's not done digging. They brought him up during shift change. No one said much at first. Just 2 paramedics wheeling a stretcher through the corridor past the lockers and vending machine, while the rest of us stood around pretending not to stare. His boots were still caked with dust, and his jacket looked like it had been scraped against stone. But it was the way he lay on the gurney, stiff as wood, eyes wide open, that made people go quiet. It was Sergei. He was from the 4th crew, big guy, always chewing gum, always first in the shaft. I'd worked 2 shifts next to him last week. He wasn't the type to spook easily, but something was wrong now. He wasn't hurt, not exactly. There wasn't a scratch on him, but he didn't blink, didn't respond. His fingers were curled into his palms, tight enough to bruise. When they wheeled him past, he turned his head slightly, just slightly, and looked at me. And I swear to God, I've never seen eyes that empty, not confused, not scared, Just blank, like whatever made him him had stayed down there, and only the body had come back. They said he collapsed in the maintenance shaft, just dropped his pick, walked off toward the dark, and stopped responding. They found him 10 minutes later, standing in the far tunnel. No injuries, no sign of gas leak, no cave-in, but his helmet light had burned out, and when they reached him, he was standing there, staring at the wall like it was talking to him. The higher-ups told us it was a panic attack, overexertion, maybe dehydration. But they pulled the fourth crew off rotation, and by the next day, the shaft he'd come from was sealed. They didn't even give us a reason. That's when we started whispering, quiet talk in the smoking area at the back of the mess hall about the way he had stared, about the other miner back in '09 who walked out of the pit and never spoke again, about that odd smell coming up through shaft 7, not gas but something metallic, old. I didn't want to believe it. I'm a practical guy. But then, 3 nights later, I saw Sergei again. Not in the hospital, not at home. I saw him standing in the shaft entrance at the far end of the compound, helmet off, still staring. And this time, he smiled. A strange, crooked smile like his face didn't remember how to move. He didn't say anything, just watched as I walked past on my way to the night shift. I didn't report it. What would I say? But ever since I've been having the dreams of tunnels that lead back on themselves, of voices echoing from vents where no one's working, of the sound, slow scraping footsteps just behind me, no matter how fast I walk. And last night I woke up with coal dust on my hands, but I live off-site, and I hadn't been in the mine for 2 days. I didn't tell anyone about the dust. Instead, I scrubbed my hands raw in the sink, rinsing black water down the drain until it cleared. I didn't sleep after that, just sat on the edge of the couch, listening. The walls of my apartment are thin, and in the silence between refrigerator clicks, I thought I could hear it. The faint clink of boots, not outside, inside the ventilation system. I told myself it was the pipes. It's always the pipes. When I showed up at the site the next morning, the crew chief pulled me aside, said the shaft Sergei had wandered into, the one they sealed, was showing signs of instability. That was the official word. But no one was down there. No one had touched that part of the mine since Sergei was found. So why were the sensors picking up movement? And it's not rats, he said, unless the rats are carrying pickaxes. He meant it as a joke, but neither of us laughed. I spent that day loading transport carts at Station 12. The air was thick, the kind that sticks in your throat and makes your teeth feel gritty. After 2 hours, I stepped away to wipe the sweat off my face, and that's when I saw it. A shadow move, not fast, slow, deliberate. Just at the edge of the next shaft over, I waited. Nothing. I checked the entrance. No footprints. No one signed into that corridor on the log. When I came back, someone had written on the inside of my helmet, not scratched or painted, but drawn in dust. Just one word smeared across the visor in long, uneven strokes. Deeper. I stared at it until my skin crawled. No one admitted to it. And the longer I looked at the letters, the more I realized. It was written from the inside. That night, I sat up reading old safety reports, combing through forums from ex-miners, even Russian ghost stories. I don't know what I expected. Not answers, just some kind of pattern. But there wasn't one, just vague mentions of lost time, of men who walked into shafts and came out wrong, quiet, changed. Some left the job, some didn't. A few ended up in clinics, and one back in 1983 who disappeared completely, only for his boots and coveralls to show up in someone else's locker weeks later. Still warm, I thought about quitting. I really did. But when you've got rent, debt, and nothing else lined up, you tell yourself you're imagining things, that the air's just playing tricks, that you're tired. That's what I told myself the next morning, too, until I found the second helmet, identical to mine. Same scratches, same sticker on the back, a faded cartoon mole with a hard hat. But the inside was clean, brand new, except for the note tucked inside it, folded once, written in what looked like pencil smudged with coal dust. "Don't let him follow you home." I kept the note in my locker, folded behind a packet of painkillers I hadn't touched in months. I didn't tell anyone, not my crew chief, not the safety officer, definitely not the guy from HR who kept stopping by just to check in. What could I say? That someone left me a helmet that matched mine down to the scratch on the visor and tucked a warning note inside? They'd laugh, or worse, report me. So I went back to work, like nothing was wrong. The shifts started blending together after that. We were short-staffed, working double rotations, and the mine, even the parts we'd mapped, began to feel unfamiliar. Shaft 7 started echoing at odd hours. Tools went missing. One guy swore he saw footprints going straight up the tunnel wall. We laughed it off, but not really. And Sergey? Still catatonic. Word was they transferred him to a clinic up north. One of the new guys said he heard the paramedics whispering that he'd started to talk again, but only in his sleep, and what he said didn't sound like Russian, or any language they recognized. I stopped sleeping well, woke up gasping. Once I found myself outside my apartment building, barefoot, with coal dust smeared across my cheek and shirt. I didn't remember leaving. I didn't remember dreaming, but I remembered the word on the helmet. Deeper. It was like something in me was being pulled, not forced. Pulled. Not by fear, by curiosity, or something worse. And finally, I gave in. One night I stayed late, said I was running maintenance checks. They'd shut down part of the southern wing, near where Sergey had been found. That shaft was locked, but I knew how to bypass the security gate. We all did, if we were honest. The air changed as soon as I passed the barrier. Heavier, not stale. Still like it hadn't been disturbed in decades. My headlamp barely cut through the black. The silence was unbearable, the kind that presses into your eardrums like a vacuum. But then I heard it. Breathing. Slow, ragged, not mine. I froze. Swung the light left, then right. The tunnel was empty, just dust motes in the beam, floating like ash. But the breathing didn't stop. It got closer, and then a whisper. "You came back." I turned and ran. I don't remember how I got out. The last thing I remember is seeing a shadow, tall, too tall, slouch forward from the wall. Not Sergey, not even a person, just something wearing his shape, like a bad costume stretched over the wrong bones. I made it to the gate. I don't remember opening it. I don't remember climbing the ladder. I just remember the cold air on my face when I surfaced. They said I collapsed near the service elevator. Hadn't been gone more than 20 minutes. But my watch said 6 hours, and when they found me, I had dirt under my fingernails. Red clay, from a depth we hadn't dug in years. I quit the next day, tried to forget, but a week later, my phone rang. Unknown number, just static on the other end, until a voice cut through, "Don't let him follow you home." Then a knock at the door, and outside, boot prints, still damp with mud.